Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar on the Collaborative Teaching and Learning course in the European SchoolNet Academy. My name is Nair Carrera and I am one of the moderators in this course along with my colleagues Caroline, Deirdre and Ana Katerina Luis. Very warm welcome to all of you who have joined this webinar today. It's very cold outside, so it's better to be inside joining a webinar, that's for sure. Before we start, I'm going to ask you to mute your microphones. I think all of you are muted at the moment, but in any case, if you see somebody raising your hand or with the microphone on, I will switch it off, okay? If you have any question or anything, you can write them on the chat, and at the end of the presentation, I will lay those questions to our speaker today. The program will be recorded, so if any of you need to leave before, I don't know, go for a drink or anything, don't worry, because we will share the presentation on the relevant section of the course. It's 4.1.1. And yeah, so this module in this course, it's about teacher collaboration. How can teacher collaboration facilitate collaborative learning? And in order to solve all the questions that you have been posted in the Padlet, we have today the great speaker. It's Deirdre Butler. I don't know if the surname is correctly pronounced. Deirdre, correct me if I'm wrong. She's one of the instructors of the course, along with the things that I have already mentioned. And for this session, we will present an informal questions and answers session, where you will be getting the answers to all the questions that you have posted on the Padlet. Not all of them. So we've made a selection because, of course, there were a lot of questions. We couldn't pick up all of them, but the most important ones and the most relevant ones, we have included them. So I will give you a short introduction about Deirdre. Deirdre Butler is a senior lecturer in the education at St. Patrick's College, where she designs and coordinates learning programs for undergraduate and postgraduate students. She has a lot of experience in the theory and practice of digital learning and also in teacher professional development. Like, for instance, in the TeachNet project, we provide professional development and support to teachers in Irish primary and post-primary schools. So, Deirdre is also chair of the International Advisory Board for the second phase of Microsoft Partners in Learning Initiative, advisor to the program Innovative Teaching and Learning ITL Research, and also a member of the Horizon K-12 Advisory Board, where we research and select the topics for the annual Horizon Report K-12 edition, which, as you probably know, focus on emerging technology and its applications to K-12 education. It's an honor for us to have Deirdre Butler with us today. I think she's the perfect person to guide us through this topic today, to answer your questions. I hope you enjoyed this session. Deirdre, I hope the introduction is fine for you. If not, feel free to add or correct me on anything I said.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's great. If you see me bending down every so often, I'm actually trying to read the chat, which is in tiny writing on my screen.
No worries. I'll do it.
Oh, good.
Don't worry about the chat. I will be gathering all the questions there, and then I will ask them to you at the end of the presentation.
Yep.
So, as I said, for today, we have kind of tried to gather all the questions, some of the most important ones that have been posted in the chat. First question would be this one. Is it often difficult to ensure that all group members actively work together? So how can we integrate lazy or disruptive kids in collaborative learning? I have to say that all the questions are really hard to answer. So, yeah.
And I think, and welcome to everybody. I'm delighted to be able to talk to people. Do feel free to participate as well, because we'll actually want to hear what other people have to say as well. The thing as well is to remember that all of these questions, it depends on the context, it depends on your educational setting. There's no silver to any of these questions. Nobody has the answers to everything. And I don't know your students as well, so it's very difficult to actually sort of, give generic type answers. When you're talking about sort of, lazy or disruptive children, it can also, you know your students better than anybody else. So when I had these who seemed to be disengaged, for me, they were disengaged because they weren't interested in the topic. And have to try and sort of work at it so they actually are interested in a particular type of topic, or maybe they're actually interested in doing a particular type of things. You could have people who are, let's say, very good at putting websites together, or children who are very good at programming, or children who are very good at collating information. And I find that if they have a definite task to do and are clear on what they need to do, they actually take a really good role in the group. But the main thing is, for me, the students I've interacted with at all ages disengage because they are uninterested. So they can actually try and hook them into an area of the particular topic they'd be interested in. So if that helps or answers your question.
I can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
I was just saying that it's always important to find like a good activity for children to engage and be interested in the topic.
Yes, that's the key, because I will be myself as well. If I'm not interested in a particular topic, as adults won't engage. Why should we expect children to be, our students, young people, to be any different?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We move to the next question. We want to do like this. So we first answer all the questions, and at the end we still have some time. I'll give you some space for more questions. Okay. Okay. Do you think it will be the teacher to decide about group division in class and roles within each group, or shall we try to promote full responsibility and freedom of choice?
Okay, it's a double-edged sword, because for students to be able to have a real responsibility in the work that they're doing, because if you don't have responsibility, you don't have accountability. That's the issue. But you can't expect students to be able to work in a group and have full responsibility and freedom of choice if they've never been engaged or in this type of group work before and have developed their skills. So I would expect that a program of work would be have developed with students over a period of time, where they actually are working in simple things like when you put people together to collaborate, that have a definite task to collaborate on. They know what they're collaborating on, that they're giving feedback, or if they're shared responsibility, and that they are scaffolded to understand the task and participate in it. So otherwise, we won't be able to develop skills like consensus, negotiation, active listening. So they're all skills that need to be fully developed before we can actually have full responsibility and freedom of choice about how my group operates. So it's like a balance in scales. You have to develop their skills and abilities, and then develop their skills and abilities in collaborative ways. Then they can work in collaborative tasks. So you can't one without the other. Like especially you'll see with pre-service students as well, you say, have you developed collaborativities? They say, oh yes, we put them in groups. Do they know what to do? They'll work it out themselves. And I'm saying, well, how can they work it out for themselves if they don't know how to work in a group? You can't accept responsibility if you don't know. And freedom of choice actually expects to have understanding of how to work collaboratively. So,
yeah. And show what their roles are actually.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Very interesting. Let's move to the next question. Yeah. So how can we persuade students with peer relationship problems or top students who sometimes refuse to work with others about the advantages of collaborative work?
This comes back to the age of the students, right? And their commitment or their investment in the task. So at the moment, I'm working with pre-service students, and they have a group task. And for them to understand, and some people say, I prefer to work on my own, but we know that the advantage for them to work together is the fact that they will learn from one another about their ideas about how to design a learning activity. So the advantage of collaborative work is that we've built in the assessment piece. And it has to be carrot and sort of stick for them to understand what collaborative work is about, then they need to engage with it first. They can't just walk away from it. We've actually encouraged it by having a assessment, a group assessment piece, and we actually have an individual accountability as well. So they're designing units of work that they're going to implement in a classroom, and then the individual rationale is explaining rationale as to why they picked certain technologies, why they design things in a certain way. So now you actually have the group piece designed and the individual piece designed. So that means then if I'm somebody who likes to work on my own, I can actually develop the rationale piece on my own, and I can input with it to the group, but the two things work together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I don't know if the person who wrote this question is actually with us now, but if he or she is with us, he or she may want to refer to it.
That'd be useful for me as well, because I find this, because I work collaboratively a lot of the time in my work and my everyday, I find it very difficult to actually engage people when it's only a one-on-one give and take. I prefer to real collaboration where people can actually jump in, say what they are thinking, and then my thinking understands based on questions and what they give back as well. So it's a more than one direction, but it's multiple directions in order to learn.
Yeah. So here's Teresa saying in the chat that it depends on the children, their personalities and their habits.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the next question then. So, shall we assess the individual contribution of each student if the work is done in groups?
Well, okay, so this is a good question, because it actually is, you're trying to say, how did different people contribute to the work of the group? And that comes back to the design of the task. Okay, so if you design the task so that the task is interdependent, then it means that my piece of the work can't be done unless the other person's work is done as well. So you have something where we'll have to put in our piece, otherwise the piece doesn't work. That, and you can see the thing will fall apart otherwise if everybody doesn't contribute. So break it up into different groups. There's one example there you actually did on the course where it's Olympic site selection. If you look at anchor lesson, each group of students had a different piece to do, but it was when they came together and they pick a site for an where the Olympics were going to happen. If the different groups didn't do their work, like the volcanist and the other people, geologists, their place could be volatile for volcanoes, but then the other part would be wrong. They'd come together to pick a site and make an argument as to why this site was the perfect place to have the Olympics. It all comes down to the design of the task. What we ask students to do as well is, in group or individually, is they have to write up their contribution or record their contribution to the group and they learned in the process. So the one I talked about for my pre-service teachers, they're one group of 4 learning activities, but they each have to then write up their own individual rationale. So I then see from their rationale and things were designed what their individual contribution is. What people do as well is they can actually maybe use something like a OneNote, and you can see from the OneNote who contributed what. Okay, so that's very easy because it's date stamped and timed, so you can see who put in what contribution. And then we're getting the group to present to the rest of the class, and each member they have 8 minutes to present, so each group member in the group of 4 have to for 2 minutes each. But the catch is, when they are questioned from the class and from the tutor, a member of the group can be asked any particular question, and they have to be capable of answering it. Okay, so it's another way of actually seeing it. Yeah.
Okay, great answer. Of course, of course. Next question. Let's move on a bit quickly. because just in case people want to ask you something later on.
Okay.
So yeah, so here they're asking if you share an example of a rubric for self-assessment, peer assessment, and group assessment. So there are rubrics to assess different roles in groups.
Now, there are websites where you can actually sort of, access rubrics, but those websites generally are very generic. And when actually an awful lot of them are sort of ticking boxes exercises, okay? The type of rubric, and you can use the same thing for a self, peer, or group. If you looked at the visual that you went through in the group, where it had the tree, the decision tree of collaborative learning. So you looked at the first thing, you ask yourself the first thing, like sort of integration. Did I have the opportunity, to collaborate in pairs or groups? Okay. The thing was, okay, did I have an opportunity? Did I have shared understanding? And you would ask them, then you can say, in way did I have shared understanding? And then did I actually have an opportunity to look at my work, and did I actually did I have shared responsibility for that work? If so, in what way was the responsibility shared? The next level is asking, did I have an opportunity to make substantive decisions? If I did, what decisions actually substantive? What did I feel that I made with those substantive decisions? Were they decisions about the process or the product or the design? Okay, and then was the task interdependent? In what did I think it was interdependent? So you really have to be, when you're designing rubrics, you also have to think of the content that you're actually engaging with. So as well as the actual skill of the collaboration, you're looking at to what level of collaboration did I engage. You're also looking at the content and in what way did I engage with that content. And by engaging in a collaborative activity, did my understanding of the content deepen, and in what way did it deepen? So to use the same rubric, and I can self-assess and actually indicate where I felt I did well, what I felt I had a problem, how this be circumvented again. With assessment, I can actually work with my partner or another person in the group, and I can use the same rubric. But students have to be prepared for self-assessment and peer assessment. If we've used it before, if I'm very clear as to what I'm looking at, then I can't self-assess. And there's no point in me self-assessing, and there's no point in having assessment if I then don't have the opportunity to go back and my work based on the assessment. So actually you look at my work, and that requires another skill, which is called self-regulation. So I'm actually using this rubric self-assess. I then have to have the ability to stand back from my work and assess it. I highlight where I think it's good, where I think I need to work. I have to make a plan as to how I'm going to improve it. When I'm with peer assessment, I have to be skilled at being able to give you feedback in a positive way so you'll understand it. Small children, we try and actually engage them to think of, and most of you would have heard the thing about 2 stars and wish. So 2 stars is 2 things that I like about this work and think is good. And the wish is how I think, what I wish that you would incorporate. So that's the building up students' understanding for constructive criticism. To indicate positively and positive way what they and how they feel the work could be improved. So example would be for peer assessment where children where they might be describing to their classmates the things they did at the weekend. And what one of our students did is they recorded what children said. Okay? So for that student then to self-assess, what if they played the recording back So a group of children the student could listen to the recording back, and the small group was listening to it as well. But the two said it, they got an opportunity to self-assess by saying, the next time I say this, I think I say that the dog was black and the dog galloped away. So they're actually reflecting the language they're using, because maybe you want to develop our language. So the other peers in the group, then they get an opportunity to feed back the chars and the wish as well. And the thing about it is that student is enabled to do a second recording. And they actually then build in the assessment based on the feedback they got. So there's no point in assessment until you get an opportunity to actually put in action. Exactly. As your work.
And that's a personal question. Could you use the portfolios for peer assessment or group assessment?
Yes, of course, perfectly, because with the portfolios, and remember, I'm trying to explain to my students, you don't have to have fancy software for a portfolio. You can have something like even PowerPoint, where you can actually see your work there. Let's say they're looking at they've created a picture or whatever, and you're going to get feedback from it. You would actually then, the students can leave an audio file on it, where I can actually just press insert audio. I can record self-assessment. I don't have to type it up. I don't want, if I'm a very young child, or if I have, English, well, we would say English as an additional language, but in other countries you may say, an English as an additional language, where I actually record it in my native language if I want to, and then other people leave it in another language. Another very simple thing which is really useful for feedback for the group is the software voice thread, where you could have, let's say I'm focusing on pictures at the moment, where you might actually put up a multimedia thing or a sound file, and then you have the ability for everybody to give their input as a voice thread as well. You have a record of what everybody has said, so you use it for assessment. So yes, there are plenty of ways, and portfolio is ideal. We don't have to think of portfolios as being real fancy pieces of software. We could have a Word document, you could have a presentation, voice thread, it could be as pads where you're getting feedback back. You could use OneNote, you can put in all sorts of stuff, pictures, videos, and everything is date stamped and everything else.
So teacher, I don't know if you're using the portfolios. If not, you can try, give it a try, because I'm sure it will be useful for you and also for the students.
Yes.
Let's go to the next question. How we ensure that collaborative work is beneficial also to students with special needs?
Here you have to think about, when you say students with special needs, what of need are we talking about? Okay, and that's why I refer back to what I said in the last question, particularly when it comes to how we can lead feedback. And at the time when we give feedback, if we're only giving it face-to-face, there's no word. Of this session here, we're talking and it's being recorded. So we have a reference point that we can go back and listen to. So for students with special needs, I wouldn't be expecting everybody when they're giving feedback have to be able to write it. That's why I talked about talking it. But it's very easy for me to actually just leave a recording. Or again, you have to be very conscious of what is the special need of your student. So before you leave something, you then need to actually maybe a picture, maybe a diagram will capture the feedback they want to give back. It all goes back to what are the special needs of your students, and how can you incorporate. I mean, where some people may say some students may be dyslexic, but they can be absolutely, let's say, wonderful in mathematical ability and analysis, etc. So last week we were using dynamic geometric software, and again, some people were really excellent at this, but for where they would have been held back if they had to explain reasoning. For a student with special needs, if I wasn't able to type, the teacher doesn't understand my level of understanding, but I can actually do a screen grab of the dynamic geometric software that I'm using, and then leave a voice recording as to which explains my level of thinking, how you can really gauge and understand my level of thinking, which can be much higher than the ability to be able to write or type. So to be able to use multimedia pictures.
Great, thank you. That's been a really good answer. Okay. Any of you have asked questions? If you are there, and if you want to add something or ask another question, we'll do it at the end. Okay. Let's go through the questions first. So question 7, could you suggest special parameters or special rubric for assessing children with disadvantages like dyslexia, for example, in collaborative work, which is kind of related to the previous...
Yes, it's very much related to. So instead of saying, like I've seen sort of in rubrics where they're focusing on things like the written responses and, you know, was the grammar used and everything else, I would look at in rubrics the grammar of sort of language that was used. If it was, let's say, an English language class I was focusing on. If a problem thing I'm trying to look at, let's say we're actually trying to work out traffic patterns, say outside the school, in order to be able to, I remember a group of children I worked with, they wanted an extra traffic warden outside their school. So their problem they were engaging with, they were trying to actually gather data and traffic data, etc. So if I'm trying to assess how they worked, I shouldn't be able to see, I'd be able to favour one type of learner over the other. So once you're able to give feedback in a very constructive way, it should be left up to the learner as to what way they give that feedback. And I think that's the important thing for assessing children. It goes back to the special needs. So it should be my decision as to which way I give feedback. I can only give feedback in very different ways if I know and understand the technology I can use. It's important as well. That it's acceptable to give a variety of feedback in lots of different ways. So not making a special case of the person with dyslexia. Okay, because I like to be able to leave oral responses because it's much clearer for me to do it. I may not always have my keyboard with me. I will be able to, if I'm using a tablet, depending on the device I have, be able to click in, insert audio, and leave a response. So I think when actually developing rubrics, I don't think you make cases. I think you actually look at the overall, how was the feedback given, let's say.
And, be aware of the special needs of the children, of course.
Of the children. And the big thing is so that they have a variety and a range of tools that they can use.
Definitely. Great, Deirdre. It's been really interesting. I'm not sure we have enough time for all the questions. I hope so, but let's try. So, how can we assess different levels of social interpersonal skills in the work group?
This is quite difficult to actually assess because you have different type of learners. I mean, I've worked this out as well. In fact, sometimes you think that the real extroverted people who always sort of socially interact and are very talkative and vocal, sometimes they seem to be the people who are doing really well in group work, whereas there are the people who sort of sit back. They are internalizing the different thoughts, etc., and they're actually trying to make it their own and then try to understand what the problem is in the group. So this is difficult to assess. The different levels of social and interpersonal skills in the work group. And you would really need to be able to monitor them closely. You need to have a system whereby you're focusing on a different group at different times of the day. You actually have to be very systematic about this as well, because sometimes you may find yourself drawn to certain groups because for two reasons: either they usually get on well, or there's usually problems. And then, of course, depending on, I know with certain schools, that you go into, and particularly it's sometimes can be tied to the socioeconomic group of children that you're actually dealing with. It's difficult to actually interact in groups. So you may have to do an awful lot of pre-work with them and ongoing work. So this is something that it came up, you have to be really aware of it. And you actually have to look at the dynamics of a group. Maybe before you make a decision about a particular child or student, try in a few different groups, different types of learners, and see how they interact. And we all know some of us have much better personal and social skills than others. I mean, we're better at learning. We just better at vocalizing and getting with people. So, really good question, very difficult to answer.
It's like this kind of picture. I'm sure you have seen it when there is a tree and there's different animals, and the text says, let's see who can climb the tree. And then there is actually like, I don't know, bird or an elephant or something like that. So you need to make sure that you know your group perfectly fine and their weaks and also weakness and also their strong points, I guess.
The main thing as well is the fact that sort of, you know, you make the learning visible. That's important, and how you actually enable them to communicate with one another. And that's why when you have things like voice threads, etc., I'm shy, so I won't interact in the group situation, but I may be willing to go off and think about what was said, and in the quiet of my own space, I can actually put up a reaction to the group's work, because how I interact. So that's what we need in lots of different ways of interacting with the task.
Yeah. Thank you. Great. So let's move to the 9th question. So even using multiple tools, the assessment may not be fair. How can we avoid being influenced by the average performance of top students or weaker students?
And people as well, remember, I don't have, these are my opinions, okay, and these are my understandings. I don't have, as I say, the answers to all the solutions. This is how I see the world. And all of you who are involved in this call have lots of deep understandings of deeper issues as well, because your sets of experiences are different from mine as well. So I'd like to get that out there, that this is my understandings of these questions. When you use multiple tools, it may not be fair. You actually have to think of just using, and that's where it's great, it says multiple tools. You made an effort to try and gather the understandings, learning of a range of different tasks, a range of different ways of seeing the world. You've given learners as many opportunities as possible. And assessment, and they have to sort of break it up. Are you looking at, you look at formative assessment and summative assessment? Is this really crucial assessment that's going to actually determine, next stage of a young person's career? So it all comes back to you're making the best possible judgment you can at that moment in time. And as long as it's not just taken as one, it's a snapshot of a moment in time. And once you have a cumulative picture of that student, then you actually can say, well, this is what it looks like, this picture of learning for the year is what we have here. And we go back to your portfolio. If you have a way of gathering evidence, that's really important to be able to demonstrate. And for the student as well to be able to demonstrate the understanding of this topic at a particular place in time. This is the feedback I've gotten. These are the difficulties I have. These blocks of my understanding. These are the leaps I've made. These are the breakthroughs I've made. And that's the thing, to be able to stand back and reflect on learning. Because and I think important change is, moving forward, is that it's not how many I can bank. It's not like sort of filling up a bucket like before, like content, what we're trying to look at now is how can we engage with concepts maybe we've never had before. What are my strategies and my abilities to be able to engage with these? So how can I apply my thinking skills and my learning strategies? And how can I demonstrate my learning so that I, as a learner, have equal responsibility to demonstrate and assess my own learning. So that's why it can be difficult when you only want to take one snapshot. Like a combination of it and a way of actually demonstrating learning over time.
They were mentioning something in the chat. I didn't have the chance to read it properly, but I don't know if they're talking about tools to create portfolios. As you said, you can either use like a presentation on PPT or Word document. There's also Padlet, Weebly, Wix. So there are different tools that you can use. So it's worth giving it a try.
Of course, blogs. We use actually for our students here who are pre-service teachers. Our assessment tool is what we call learning blog. So say first-year students who come to wait from second level school, and we have them every week for an hour a week. What they do is they actually have their learning blog, and they put up what they learned every week, an example of the tools they've engaged with, and also they actually do a reflection. So it captures learning over the process of a year, and that's their assignment, and that's their assessment.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. I'm reading the chat because they're mentioning that something about teachers not being working alone. It's not, I guess they're talking about making progress with other countries. I'm sure most of you know about e-twinning. If you don't, have a look because it's really interesting to get like a cross-curricular project with people from countries, and it's also very motivating for the children.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of intercollaborative projects online. There's lots of different groups you can sign up to. So there's lots of ways you can actually engage. And what better way to find out about things by actually sort of, you have Skype for the classroom, etc. So actually, like we're doing here, you can actually see and talk to people.
Enjoy, yeah.
Yeah. So it's and the thing as well is that for real collaboration to work, people have to be working on a really worthwhile project, to be meaningful and relevant to the group of students who are working on it.
Definitely. Okay, thank you, Deirdre. Let's move on to the next question. How many real, complex, and meaningful collaborative learning activities do you reckon a teacher should implement in a class in one school year? This is a very hard question.
Again, it comes back to it comes back to whole school development. It comes back to, are you the only teacher who is trying to do this in a school? So you start off, you may be only begin to start off, so I would say start with one. Start with one training experience, and see how the children react. And you also remember it's a two-way thing. You have to build up your understanding of what these are, as well have to develop the skills of being able to, work collaboratively as a group. So as their skills develop, your skill understanding will be developing as well. And the biggest thing is, once you pick a meaningful topic, let's say, for example, the local river is being polluted, or there's a local, let's say, historical site is going to be closed down because there's going to be a shopping centre or whatever. Is they're actually real and relevant to the students, or they could be beginning to let their lifestyle and exercise patterns, sort of things. And when you start and you do one type of one project like that, and it feeds off itself then. So you actually then, so there's another topic, and engage in that. Maybe there's another teacher in the school where you might actually buddy up and two of you may engage in actually a collaborative project. And maybe there is, at second level, maybe there could be a project where you're maybe investigate how you can actually improve the school team's performance, let's say in rugby, or it could be soccer or whatever. So you're going to actually, maybe the maths teacher is going to cooperate, maybe the PE teacher is going to cooperate, the chemistry teacher, where they're actually looking at diet, they're actually examining the chemical input, the nutrition. Maybe the students are going out, they're going to video the game, they're going to analyze it, statistical analysis, come back to the PE teacher saying, these are the things we think you concentrate on. So there's lots of, so once you begin that where you may actually collaborate with another teacher in the school, then you build it up where you're getting involved in those collaborative projects that are online, where you're working with other teachers as well. So this too is like sort of how long is a piece of string. And so I just wouldn't see it as a once a nice to have. I'd love it to get developed whereby it's a must have. That you build in activities every week. It actually depends on your comfort level. You're not doing this every week if you're only starting. More engaged with it and the students develop the skills and you get better as well, you'll get more and more projects you will do over the course of the year.
That's true. They were also mentioning in the chat that there are some teachers or a lot of teachers that they don't want to work with e-twinning because it's a lot of extra work. But though there are teachers who may not work with e-twinning, there are thousands of teachers that want to work with e-twinning. Actually, you can check the platform, and there are thousands of them. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are a lot of teachers who are able to join you for a project or work with you. So I think just need to check all the teachers, the participants.
Yeah.
Okay. Question. Could students still profit by the advantages of collaborative activities, even if it's an occasional activity run by one or two teachers, or just for a few hours once in a while?
It depends on how the learning experience is designed. And if you have a really nice learning experience designed with a lot of collaboration, of course they're going to benefit. It is better than nothing, is the way I'd say it. So, in other words, they will benefit from it. It's nothing. And once they get engaged in it, they will develop some sort of skills which they actually have for life. So I'd rather see one or two teachers doing it, even just for a few hours, once in a while, or once every week, than nothing. Okay?
Thank you. In the chat, because I think they grew like 400,000 teachers in Benin, so it's much more than I was mentioning actually. I think the number in my mind was the number of projects.
Okay.
That it's actually in training. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question. Do you believe it is possible to make meaningful changes regarding the introduction of collaborative learning, also in less innovative schools, without a reform of the whole education system?
I'm an optimist. Yeah, and it goes back to the other question. If we're always going to wait for whole school education reform, we'll always be stuck in this thing where we have the status quo and nothing ever changes. So what I really feel is if you make these small changes and have the collaborative learning and exciting learning environments designed, it means then build up the evidence that you will actually be able to use to leverage towards system reform. Okay. Also, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that these students are ready for the world they're going to inherit. And they're going to be, our world is getting more and more complex, and we are all the time going to have to work transborder, international, with all the different, how the world is now connected like a village. We need to be able to collaborate with one another, know and understand our differences culturally, nationally, be respectful of them well, in order for the place to be a more collaborative and actually develop a deeper understanding of societies and everything else. And I do believe you can have meaningful change, because it only takes one person to make a difference. We don't have to wait on the entire system.
So you can start making the difference.
You are the, you know that phrase, you are the change you want to be in the world.
Very good. So see if the teachers can follow this sentence. Okay, great, thank you. Let's go to the next one. So, do you think that collaborative learning can be efficiently implemented also in schools with little technology? That's a very common question, actually.
Yeah, because when you're talking about sort of even doing work, ordinary work within a school, I'm actually doing a thing where, let's say we're doing the writing process. So I'm actually writing up my writing piece, and I actually write it out. I can get back from my ear where they might say 2 stars in English. You may say, well, it would be improved if there were more descriptive words. Okay, so now I have that input, and I can do that. That's where I'm actually just getting feedback. But you're actually trying to design, let's say, a recycling campaign. And you don't need a lot of technology. You just need an awareness campaign that the children work, they see how recycling operates, etc. We would do an awful lot of this collaborative work. I mean, teaching a long time, okay? So over 3 decades ago, I was in a sort of primary classroom with my students, and we did an awful lot of collaborative work. And so, no, you don't need technology. Technology helps. It means I can collaborate more easily because I can share my OneNote notebook, or I can share my documents, and you can get on when you get home from school, or you get on when you're in a different part of the world. Okay, that's how we do the horizon reports. Nobody meets each other. We're all working in different parts of the world, all work on a wiki. We have the research questions that we work around. That would never be able to be done without the technology. But in a school, yeah, of course you can design collaborative learning and be done quite efficiently. It just means that the technology adds that little bit of layer. But remember, think about the actual children themselves. There is little technology in the school, but they actually have a lot of technology in their everyday life. Because let's say we developed a project where they're using Minecraft, and they were able to actually get on and share the servers themselves at home and work on projects, etc., and share them. And so they're able to recreate, Roman cultures and Viking thing else in Minecraft. And very little technology in school, but they have it at home. Children have cell phones, and a lot of those cell phones are smart technology. The children have tablets, so they can do, BYOD, and you don't actually have to have people saying you need to have wireless infrastructure, etc. You can do that with just basic technologies like we talked about before, like the presentation software and things like that. So we just have to be creative and imaginative.
Even if you don't have the technology, like no kind of technology, or if technology fails, you can still do a lot of things. Like, for instance, the other day we were talking with the teachers and talking about collaborative tools to collaborate with children in groups. And even if you don't have like an interactive board or something to display the image, you can always use like the normal post-it. You post it on the wall, and it's collaborative work anyway.
And you just have to, if one person has a camera, you just have to take a photograph of it and record of the collaborative work that went on.
Great, yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next question. So we arrived to the further question section. It means that we're fine on time. We still have 10 minutes. How to apply collaborative learning in maths or other subjects which require individual and abstract thinking?
Okay. I actually think like sort of people, okay, answer this. People think that you look knowledge on your own, okay? But yes, I do have to actually construct my understandings of a particular concept. But my thinking gets sharpened if it's questioned. Why, again, if you look up at the ShapeMaker software, okay, it's on the Maths is Fun site, okay, so you sort of if you just search for Maths is Fun, there's dynamic geometric software there, they're called shapers. So I have to build up my understanding of what, let's say, a quadrilateral is. Lots of different shape makers, and when I posed the question about, okay, are all parallelograms rectangles? Well, then I can do up my screen grabs and actually record my understandings. It's only to interact with other people, and they question me for my understanding, that I actually deepen my understanding. So again, you could actually, and what they did before is like we have a thing where one of my master students developed. Again, they were looking at the investigating polygons, and how he got them to work in groups was he actually designed a game, Cluedo, where you have to work out who was the person who committed the theft or the murder, it's all the different rooms in the house and certain clues. So he actually developed that game and applied it to using quadrilaterals and different shapes, and they actually work in a team to actually prove beyond reasonable doubt, like a courtroom, and who the theft was and whose guys, etc. So by actually engaging in really a collaborative game and to actually build up the evidence to prove it, able to deepen their understanding and move from just the visualization of shapes to focusing on properties and the characteristics. If people want to look up the VHEAL model of geometric thinking and see how these digital tools, because if you look at them, you can pull the shapes around and experiment with them, something that you can't do on pen and paper. And you could do that in a group, and then you could actually develop your abstract thinking. There's GeoGebra is the same. You can actually really develop abstract thinking, but if you actually position and the problem so the group are working, then challenging each other all the time. And I think that's really important because I know my thinking only develops when I work in collaboration with others. I think of something till somebody asks me a question.
That's true. There is an interesting question in the chat. Came from Nadia, and she said, "What weight has the teacher observation about how the group works over the content knowledge and the self-assessment?" So, do you agree with this? The content produced counted for 40% of the final grade. The teacher's observation counted for 40%, and the student's self-assessment for 20%.
And I think it's okay. So, some only fair, provided people have the expertise and the knowledge to be able to do something. So, the peer assessment piece will work if the students have the ability to peer assess. That's a measure. But the students don't have the ability and skills to be able to peer assess, but how can you have faith that measure? Okay? The same way with the teacher's assessment. What exactly is the teacher basing their assessment on? So when I'm talking about, let's say, geometric thinking, I'm basing my assessment on, let's say, the theoretical framework of Van Heel. So how can I prove, or how can I indicate that the students are moving from visualization to the descriptive phase, to the informal deduction phase? How am I designing the learning activity to support that? And assessment based on the framework. Well, then, do the students have access to that framework, or are they actually making their assessment? So an assessment is only fair, provided the people who are making the assessment are assessing and they're assessing it.
Thank you. Very good. We're getting to the end. Let's go to the last question, I think. How can we best deal with noise in the classroom?
Okay, so to me, there is productive noise and there's noisy noise. And I don't know, many teachers out there will understand what I'm talking about. I get very suspicious if there's total quietness in a classroom, because I'm wondering what is going on. Sometimes there are these moments of, wow, everybody is so focused and fully engaged, and that there is this lull of silence. But now myself as a teacher, I often get worried because I really feel, are they engaging? And so when you see, what I sometimes do is I assign an individual task. I say, okay, spend 5 minutes reading on this, and this is the question I'd like you to focus on, and then please turn to the person beside you, your partner, and tell them 2 things you noticed. So I'm constantly getting them to interact online, because of the fact that when they interact, they're actually exchanging their understanding and questioning them. In the lab where I was in yesterday, where I actually had my student teachers, a group of children came up from the local school. So we had 38, they were 9-year-old students, and 19 of my own students. One student was working with every pair of students. There was 3 of us, so all that. So there was about sort of 40 and 20. There's 60 plus people in the room, and have a breakout outside. The buzz was really, really intense, but they were all really focused on what they're doing. Yes, I was scanning to see if people were on task, and that's what we talked about when I met my students again today. I said, what do you notice? And that's what they were commenting on. They were saying that there was noise, but it was very productive noise, because everybody was talking about the task, and they were trying to engage and to talk different solutions. It was very active. They were using the Lego redo materials to actually to make models and program them.
And allow noise, productive noise.
Yeah, as I say, I could never understand a quiet classroom.
Yeah, definitely. And with so many students.
Yeah.
Okay, there is another question in the chat. Frustrated. So she said, when I looked at my kids, teenagers, and how they love to be connected with their classmates in WhatsApp to help each other, I think that chatting could be a good way, a special way to develop collaboration between teenagers. At least it could be an important and informal way to do this. What do you think?
Yeah, my own students, as well as the fact that they have, and I said, look, I have no problems with them having their phones, etc. As long as what they're engaged with on their phones is actually related to the learning task. So you'll see them. I mean, when I'm actually trying to understand a topic or a presentation I'm at, I'll take photographs of the presentation. You'll see people live Twitter feeds, so in a classroom, you could actually encourage them. You could actually have, there's lots of free tools rather than using Twitter if you don't want to use Twitter, whereby you can have the student actually send in questions, and you can actually see what's going on. They can report you, where they won't actually maybe put up their hand in class, but they will let you know on chat the questions they may have. Okay, so you can actually keep an eye on a chat. You can have a chat open. And then I know that in some of my students actually had a shared Snapchat. They're talking to one another about the things they have difficulty with, and somebody else will say, oh, I think this is what is meant. Okay, so it depends on you. First of all, be able to understand and be able to, what would you say, be loosen up and give a little bit of the control away. Because sometimes teachers think that they have to be in control of everything. But students, in large, if they're focused, and if they know, if you allow chat, we'll have to be able to say, well, what was the most productive piece of chat you got that helped you actually move forward in your learning? So if you have actually that factored in, well, they're responsible for coming back to you and saying, this is what I found useful. So it's not just silly banter that's going on. So that's how I would do.
And truth is that actually all the students nowadays have phones.
Yeah.
smartphones, so that they use them a lot. And we were discussing with another teacher the other day. I think she was from Cyprus, and she was saying that actually in their school that phones were not allowed. So because they thought that they couldn't control the children anymore. Like one, you give them one phone and then you cannot control them. But sometimes I think not controlling them is fine also, like the noise thing. But also, what do you think about this? What will them like? Um,
Really, it's a case of, okay, same way as when we're in a classroom and we have sort of rules and ethics, know that we all can't get up and wander around at the same time, that we all can't shout out a turn at the same time. There are rules of engagement, let's say, when we're using other devices too, and that the focus is on the learning and using them as a learning tool, which I think is really important. That's just seen as a lifetime activity.
Thank you. Let's move on to the last question, I think, and then we are on time, but we will try to answer the question. So, how should we evaluate collaborative work at the end of the year? What percentage of the whole student's performance did it cover?
Again, that's to me a question like I would call, how long is a piece of string? Okay, because assessment is ongoing, and it's not just an end of year thing. I think we should have a demonstration of learning over the year. Again, you're looking at the possibility of a portfolio or a way of demonstrating how people have developed over a year. Because when you show something at the end of the year, I've no understanding of the process. And what percentage of the whole student's performance should it cover? That's again back to how comfortable are the teachers with doing this, how comfortable students, and it may only be a small percentage. As people get more and more comfortable with the whole ideas of collaboration, etc., well, then can actually up the percentage in addition with the students. Lost chat now. We can't hear you.
I was muted. There is a question in the chat. I'm not sure I understand. Maybe you do. So it comes from Paula, and she says, our uncertainties concerns assessment, how to implement solo taxonomy and undersourced taxonomy without creating a sense of insecurity and impairity, both teachers and students. If we follow the taxonomy, what rubric should we follow to construct the instrument? Related to the, again.
Okay, ending down to see it. Let's see where it comes from. The question is very long, so I lost it halfway through.
I'll ask it again. So it says, our uncertainties concern assessment, how to implement solo taxonomy and Anderson's taxonomy without creating a sense of insecurity, both teachers and students.
Hold on, back a bit. You're talking about sort of saying, how can you said about something about a taxonomy? Yes.
So sure, I understand. Paula, can you rephrase the question, because I don't understand it either.
Can you unmute?
Yes. Do you wanna talk? Let's. She's still there, and if she wants to talk.
Is she there?
She's not. She's. I don't see her here.
Okay. So if I sort of understood it correctly, yes, people are going to be uncertain initially in the beginning. It's a big leap of faith to actually be trying to assess what traditionally assessed in school was content, and much of the content they understood. Now we're actually trying to work out, can they actually work collaboratively. So yes, it is a complex thing to do, and it's also complex to actually drive. That's why the actual matrix that you did in the collaboration thing that we put up, the IT Innovative Teaching and Learning, the 21st CLD, 21st Century Learning Design, those and the actual decision trees will actually help you describe the type of collaboration you're looking for, level to which you see that collaboration discussion in the classroom.
Okay, great, Paula. I think that answers your question. I think they are there, but they say that they have no audio. So just hope
Okay.
the answer is fine. So I think we can finish because it's 7 already, 5 minutes past 7. Thank you very much, Deirdre. It has been really interesting, really inspiring. I hope it's been useful for the teachers. I'm sure it will. And we could talk forever about this topic, and we have squeezed your knowledge to the maximum. So I hope the teachers have enjoyed and learned a lot. Thank you very much for being with us today. It has been a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful pleasure, especially all the challenging questions that you asked and put to me. And they're just my opinions. If we had the silver bullet, we'd be able to solve all the problems of the world in the morning.
Definitely.
What we're trying to do is try and be true to our students, and I try and develop with them the ability to be able to collaborate effectively as they move forward into their adult life. Thank you so much for all the interesting questions.
Thank you, Deirdre, for your time, for being here with us, and for all the participants. Kind reminder that there will be this teach meet going on next week, so you can still apply, although the dates on the course forum, I'm thinking they are not fine, but you can still apply. So if you're interested in sharing a best practice lesson plan resource where you want, you can fill in the document there. I will share it on the chat now, and also stay tuned to social media channels, Facebook group, and also in Twitter with hashtag codelab.eu. Thank you very much again, Deirdre, for your time and for being here with us. And thank you to all the participants who have joined this webinar today. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Deirdre. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.